The wolf's jaws were clamped on the child's coat as it dragged her, limbs limp and eyes half closed, across the frozen Alaskan highway. At first glance, it looked like a horrifying moment, an apex predator hauling a defenseless youngster away from safety. But what if that snarling maw wasn't brimming with bloodlust? What if the creature wasn't fulfilling its role as a vicious hunter? Instead, the truth behind this terrifying sight was far more extraordinary. Sometimes, what we witness at a distance conceals deeper truths. Stay with us as we unravel the remarkable story of courage, empathy, and second chances. As dawn broke over the jagged silhouette of Denali National Park, golden rays illuminated the vast, rolling tundra. Snow draped across every slope, lending both a stark stillness and an ethereal purity to the landscape. The Alaskan wilderness felt endless, alive with silent watchfulness. Ravens circled overhead, scanning the ground for remnants of caribou or hare. Though the beauty was breathtaking, it concealed the lurking hardships of survival. Just a few miles from the park boundary, a small community named Healy bustled with its morning routine. Some residents were preparing for daily commutes to Fairbanks, others tending to their quiet businesses. At the northern edge of town stood a humble bed and breakfast, run by middle-aged couple Bethany and Robert Simmons. They had named it Northern Lights Lodge, a straightforward moniker that drew many travelers hoping to catch a glimpse of the aurora borealis. That morning, Bethany woke to a swirling sky of salmon and lavender light. She stretched, a pang of contentment coursing through her as she started preparations for the day. Little did she know that her world and the lives of those around her would soon be upended by a most unthinkable event. Soon enough, the phone would ring. Soon enough, people would be shouting frantic messages about a child, a wolf, and a road stained with dread. Sarah Parker had just turned 11, a bright-eyed child with hair the color of sunlit wheat. She lived in Fairbanks, but had come to Healy for a short family trip. Her parents, Caroline and James Parker, loved the tranquility that surrounded Denali. They wanted their daughter to experience that same reverence for wilderness, an experience Caroline herself cherished from her own childhood. Sarah was a dreamer. She would look at the swaying birch trees and imagine hidden fairy kingdoms nestled in the moss. She created stories in her head about eagles that soared above the mountain peaks, carrying messages between distant realms. Everything in her view held a spark of magic waiting to be discovered. The day before, Sarah had wandered too close to the tree line at dusk, enthralled by the shapes in the moonlight. Only when her mother's voice echoed in the distance did she remember she wasn't supposed to stray from the cabin's vicinity. Reluctantly, she returned, carrying pockets filled with pine cones, a smooth stone that glowed in the moonbeam, and her imagination brimming with new fantasies. Nobody could have predicted that Sarah's innocent curiosity would lead her astray. But children often act on impulses that adults cannot always comprehend. Early the following morning, she slipped on her winter boots and jacket while her parents were still asleep. There was something about the hush of the dawn, when the world seemed yet to be shaped by the hustle of the day, that beckoned her outside. She trudged along a soft path through the snow, the flakes crunching beneath each step. Her breath came out in faint wisps, captured momentarily by the dawn's light. At first, she had no intention of going far. She just wanted to see the rising sun paint the mountains in pink and orange. But the silhouette of a lone figure in the distance, an animal, perhaps a wolf, sparked her imagination. Without a second thought, Sarah ventured further, weaving between the frosted spruce trees. She never stood a chance when the ground gave way beneath her small boots. A hidden patch of ice sent her tumbling down a slight ravine where rocks and tree roots conspired to catch her ankle. Pain shot through her body. Her head struck a hard outcrop, rendering her momentarily dizzy. By the time she regained her senses, she realized she couldn't move her right foot. Well, her ankle throbbed mercilessly with each attempt. And that's when she saw, staring at her from a distance, two pale, yellow wolf eyes. Every now and then, people spot a wolf near the outskirts of Denali. These sightings spark whispers in local diners and coffee shops, so for Sarah to encounter one out in the open wasn't completely unheard of. However, what happened next broke every assumption about predator-prey relationships. The wolf that approached Sarah was lean, its coat a mottled blend of grey, black, and white. Its eyes glowed with a bright inquisitiveness, and it moved with a limping gait. An old scar zigzagged across its flank, a deep reminder of battles or struggles endured. More than once, this wolf had been spotted trotting near roadsides, its muzzle lifted to sniff the air, as though searching for something or someone. Unknown to Sarah or the humans of Healy, this wolf had known the agony of losing her cub. Local rumor had it that a poacher's trap had claimed at least one pup from her litter that last season. The sorrow never left her, fueling a maternal instinct that would later lead to an extraordinary act. And so, as Sarah whimpered, the wolf didn't lunge or threaten. Instead, it slowly crept closer, ears flicking with uncertain caution. When the wolf first drew near, Sarah froze in terror. She had read enough stories to know wolves could be dangerous. The creature's breath formed vaporous clouds against the icy air. Each step it took was measured. The wild glint in its eyes held not hostility, but wariness. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. She trembled, not certain whether to shout, remain quiet, or try to stand. Pain crippled her attempts to move, so she stayed prone. Her tears started to freeze on her cheeks, tangling with stray locks of hair. The wolf sniffed at the base of her foot, where her boot had twisted outward at an uncomfortable angle. Sarah let out a shaky breath, bracing for a bite, but it never came. Instead, the wolf let out a low, guttural sound, part whine, part huff, as if sensing the child's distress. Unaware of time passing, she lay there in the ravine, too scared to call for help, too startled to do much else. She noticed how the wolf occasionally looked over its shoulder, scanning the terrain. It almost seemed protective, as if it understood the child's vulnerability. From somewhere deeper in the forest came the distant boom of a rifle. Sarah startled, wincing at the sudden echo and the surge of throbbing pain in her ankle. The wolf's ears pricked upward, and it turned its head sharply, eyes narrowing. Tension crackled in the air. If there were hunters nearby, the wolf knew it had to move. The presence of a child complicated everything. This was no usual scenario of flight or fight. Instinct took over. The wolf nudged Sarah's jacket with its muzzle. She gasped, surprised by the press of cold nose against her side. In a moment that would later be recounted in utter disbelief, the wolf grabbed hold of Sarah's jacket collar, careful not to pierce the fabric too deeply. Slowly, painfully, it dragged her across the uneven ground. Sarah's vision blurred with tears, both from fear and the pain that shot up her leg. But she realized, strangely, that the wolf was pulling her toward higher ground. After several agonizing minutes, the edge of the ravine came into view. The rifle shot echoed again, this time closer. The wolf dropped Sarah for a moment, scanning the forest with an almost anxious air, as if wrestling with a decision. The forest opened onto a narrow back road that connected Healy to other remote areas near Denali. The asphalt was coated with a thin layer of ice, mostly untouched by tire tracks this early in the morning. Sarah heard the murmur of an engine far away. Perhaps it was a passing truck or a ranger's vehicle. Summoning what little voice she had left, she tried to cry out, her sound muffled by the howling wind. The wolf seized her jacket once more and dragged her onto the road. This was the scene that would later send shockwaves through local communities and spark national headlines. A wild wolf pulling an unconscious or near unconscious child across the frozen Alaskan highway. A terrifying scene if witnessed by unknowing eyes, but the truth was more astonishing and far from sinister. As Sarah's body hit the center of the road, head lolling, the wolf stood over her protectively, eyes darting between the tree line and the distant hum of an approaching truck. The wind whipped snow across the asphalt, swirling in ghostly shapes. Fear prickled across the wolf's posture, the memory of losing its pup still fresh. Somewhere in its ancient instincts, a drive to save young life, any young life, overpowered the primal caution for self-preservation. On that morning, the only other human soul on that stretch of road was Lawrence Larry Thompson, a long-haul truck driver who lived in Anchorage. He'd been driving since dawn, hauling supplies to a remote outpost near the park. His truck's headlights cut through the foggy air, revealing a shape in the distance. Initially, he thought it was a deer or moose on the road. He slowed down, prepared to honk and scare it away. As he rolled closer, Larry's eyes widened. A wolf stood with its muzzle turned toward his oncoming truck, feet planted firmly beside a small figure in the snow. Adrenaline shot through him, and he braked hard, the vehicle skidding. The wolf bristled, but did not flee immediately. It held Larry's gaze for a fleeting instant, an inscrutable exchange between man and beast, before darting off into the forest. Larry wasted no time jumping out of the cab, heart pounding in his ears. He recognized the figure as a young girl, battered and barely conscious. Kneeling beside her, he tried to check her pulse. Relief flooded him upon finding it, though it was faint. He scrambled to his truck, calling emergency services on his radio. Even in his haste, a single thought kept echoing in his mind. Why did that wolf do this? Within 20 minutes, an ambulance arrived, its sirens piercing the crisp morning air. Sarah was loaded onto a stretcher, her body wrapped in layers of blankets to stave off hypothermia. The paramedics gave Larry a quick nod of thanks, but their urgency pulsed in the air. He looked back toward the forest, half expecting the wolf to reappear, but the trees stood silent, harboring their secrets. Sarah was rushed to Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, the nearest facility capable of handling pediatric emergencies. Caroline and James Parker got the news in the most jarring way imaginable. A local trooper pounded on their rental cabin door, breathless, demanding to know if their daughter was missing. Moments later, they were racing behind the ambulance in their SUV, tears streaming down Caroline's face, while James gripped the steering wheel with knuckles as white as the snow around them. Word spread fast. By noon, the bizarre story had reached Bethany and Robert at the Northern Lights Lodge. Bethany broke down into tears upon hearing the details from a friend who worked with emergency dispatch. Her maternal instincts flared. She prayed silently for the child she didn't even know. Robert stayed glued to the local radio, waiting for any updates. At Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, doctors worked feverishly to stabilize Sarah. She had a severe ankle sprain, a mild concussion, and early signs of hypothermia. But none of her injuries were life-threatening. In the waiting area, Caroline clung to James, both of them wrestling with equal parts relief and fear, uncertain how their daughter would fare in the coming hours. Curiosity mingled with shock. How had she ended up so far from the cabin on foot? And, more bizarrely, why would a wolf drag her onto the road? In a haze of pain medication and emotional exhaustion, Sarah tried to recount the events, though her memories were patchy. All she remembered clearly was tumbling into the ravine and seeing the wolf's eyes, haunted yet gentle, and the feeling of being pulled up towards safety. Days passed, and Sarah's condition improved. She remained in the hospital for observation, her ankle wrapped in supportive bandages, her head sutured where she'd sustained a cut. Outside the hospital walls, curiosity blossomed into rumors. Some insisted the wolf must have been rabid or desperate, that it was simply dragging its prey. Others, reading the signs differently, argued the wolf had saved Sarah. Even local park rangers were divided in their interpretations. Though the confusion hovered around them like a cloud, Sarah remained calm. In her waking moments, she insisted she saw compassion in the wolf's eyes, as though it recognized her vulnerability. She also claimed she heard a faint, keening cry from the woods, almost like the wail of a mourning mother. Her father tried to console her, explaining that wolves sometimes make strange howls. But Sarah persisted. This had felt different. The story of the wolf rescue made headlines, albeit with sensational twists. News outlets sensationalized the visuals, a wild beast dragging a helpless girl onto an icy highway. Speculation soared. Some networks framed it as a miraculous rescue, others as a terrifying near disaster. Interviews with locals ran the gamut, from praising the wolf's unprecedented act of kindness to calling for increased hunting efforts to eliminate such unpredictable predators. The divisive nature of the topic quickly turned it into clickbait, and online comment sections exploded with debates about wildlife conservation, human-wildlife conflict, and ethical responsibility. Meanwhile, the staff at Fairbanks Memorial Hospital tried to shield Sarah from the media frenzy. Nurses would slip into her room and watch her paint the wolf's image in watercolors, soft grey fur and gentle, intelligent eyes. She said she felt an inexplicable connection to the creature, a bond forged in those terrifying moments when her life hung in the balance. Caroline and James were not content to let the matter rest. They consulted with park rangers, local wildlife experts, and even a wolf conservation group. Perhaps understanding the wolf's motivation would help Sarah cope with the emotional aftermath. In their quest for insight, they met Dr. Martina Delgado, a biologist specializing in wolf behavior within Denali National Park. Dr. Delgado listened intently to Sarah's story. She found it plausible that a female wolf, having lost her own pup, might exhibit protective instincts toward a child. Wolves, like humans, can exhibit compassion, especially under extraordinary circumstances. Their intelligence and familial bonds are well documented, even if it's rare for them to extend that care to humans. She explained how certain packs in Denali have grown somewhat accustomed to human presence. Though outright domestication is impossible, there have been documented instances of wolves showing curiosity or even acceptance rather than outright aggression. The astonishing truth could lie in the wolf's maternal instincts, grief, or even in a fleeting recognition that the child was helpless and in danger. Emotions ran high in Healy and the surrounding areas. Some residents felt a renewed sense of awe for nature's mysteries, praising the wolf's actions as a sign of deeper interspecies connection. Others bristled at the notion, worried that this event would encourage people to take wolves less seriously as wild, potentially dangerous animals. For every person who saw hope in the incident, another perceived a cautionary tale about letting children wander in the wilderness. Among the loudest critics was a local hunting guide, Travis Morris, who argued that the entire narrative was nonsense. He insisted the wolf was merely dragging away prey and that the child got lucky the truck arrived in time. Yet even he struggled to reconcile that viewpoint with the telling detail that Sarah had no deep bite marks, only the collar of her jacket showed torn threads. Though humans debated and speculated, life in the wild continued its ancient rhythms. The female wolf, whom Dr. Delgado had been tracking for months, roamed the edges of the park, occasionally returning to the site near the ravine. She would sniff the air, as though searching for something lost. Her sorrowful howls often reverberated through the pines at dusk, a testament to a heart that had once known the joy of nurturing a cub. At times, this wolf would be seen limping across ridges, her old injury flaring under the weight of winter's demands. park rangers kept a watchful eye, concerned both for her safety and the risk of any future encounters with humans. Some felt a stirring empathy, suspecting that in her grief she had recognized a wounded child as an echo of her lost pup. Sarah's ankle mended slowly, but the psychological effects of her brush with death lingered. She struggled with nightmares of falling into endless darkness, calling out for help, only to see the glowing eyes of a wolf staring back. Yet, in the nightmares, the wolf never harmed her. Instead, she often woke with a feeling of longing, of wanting to embrace that silhouette in the snow. Her parents considered therapy sessions to help Sarah process the trauma. A child psychologist named Dr. Evelyn Barnes was brought in. Over gentle conversations, crayons and coloring books, Dr. Barnes noticed something remarkable. Sarah didn't harbor fear or hatred of wolves. Instead, she felt a deep yearning to see that particular wolf again, to somehow thank her. This was not the typical reaction for a young trauma victim, which led Dr. Barnes to believe that Sarah's bond with the wolf might be part of her healing process. As winter's hold on the region began to relent, Sarah's parents decided a visit to Denali under safe conditions might help their daughter confront her fears and confusion. They arranged a guided trip with Dr. Delgado and a park ranger named Alana Owens. Sarah, hobbling slightly on her newly freed ankle, felt both trepidation and excitement at the prospect of going back. The group traveled by snowmobile, ensuring they stayed within well-monitored trails. The crisp air stung their cheeks, and the breathtaking grandeur of Denali's peaks dwarfed any lingering anxieties. On the ride, Dr. Delgado explained wolf behavior, pack hierarchy, and the concept of territory. She also talked about the importance of preserving these wild corridors where wolves could roam, hunt, and raise families without conflict. They stopped at the ridge overlooking the forested ravine, the very place Sarah had slipped. The snow was partially melted now, revealing patches of dead grass and sparse shrubs. Sarah's pulse quickened. She remembered the tumble, the sharp pain, and that single unwavering gaze. Standing at the edge with her parents on either side, she exhaled a shaky breath. A sudden howl rent the air. It came from the distance, echoing off the mountain walls. Everyone froze, scanning the horizon. Another howl followed, then silence. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. The sound was at once haunting and strangely comforting, like a voice that had once guided her out of darkness. Later that afternoon, while trekking along the established trails, they caught a glimpse of a lone wolf. It stood perhaps 50 yards away, partially obscured by spruce. Dr. Delgado peered through her binoculars and signaled for them to remain still and quiet. Sure enough, the wolf had the same mottled coat, the same scar across its flank. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She could hardly breathe. The wolf's ears twitched, and it locked eyes with the small group. In that silent standoff, no one dared to move. Then, almost imperceptibly, Sarah took a small step forward. The wolf flinched, but did not flee. It looked from Sarah to Dr. Delgado, to Alana, and back to Sarah again. What happened next would forever be etched in Sarah's memory. The wolf lowered its head, tail still and not raised in aggression. It let out a faint whine akin to a question, or maybe a memory. Sarah's breath caught. She wanted to speak, to soothe, to communicate something beyond words. She raised her hand slowly, palm outward, as though to say, "I'm here. I mean, no harm." The wolf took a single cautious step closer. For a heartbeat, child and wolf stood as if suspended in time, each acknowledging the other's presence. Tears rolled down Caroline's cheeks behind her scarf, and James felt a lump in his throat he couldn't explain. For Dr. Delgado, this moment was a testament to nature's capacity for compassion, fleeting though it might be. They only stood like that for a few seconds before the wolf turned and loped off into the trees. A swirl of snow dust trailed behind, and soon it was gone. Sarah felt an unexpected emptiness in its absence, as though she'd lost a friend a second time. Nevertheless, she also felt a new sense of peace, a certainty that she had expressed her gratitude, however subtly, for an act of mercy and care she still struggled to fully understand. Following that encounter, Sarah's emotional recovery progressed swiftly. She began to draw and paint more often, wolves beneath auroras, children playing with gentle beasts, and families watching the northern lights hand in paw. Her therapist remarked on the improvement in her self-confidence and sense of safety. Caroline and James were relieved to see the change in their daughter. They, too, adopted a broader perspective on life. Perhaps an event so extraordinary, so beyond the usual predator-prey narrative, called for a deeper reflection on how humans and animals coexist. The Parkers decided to extend their stay in Alaska, allowing Sarah more time to rest and also to keep that bridge of understanding open. When Sarah felt up to it, the family made an appearance at the Northern Lights Lodge, where Bethany and Robert welcomed them with open arms. News of Sarah's condition brought the entire community together. Locals who had once been suspicious or fearful found themselves softened by the living proof that compassion can cross boundaries. Over steaming cups of hot cocoa, they listened to Sarah recount her story with a mixture of wonder and humility. Even the once skeptical hunting guide, Travis Morris, approached her timidly to say he was glad she was all right. He added that, while he still believed wolves could be dangerous, he couldn't deny the peculiar mercy shown in this case. This simple admission felt monumental, a slight thaw in the polarizing debate about how to treat the wilderness around them. As word got out that Sarah was recovering well, reporters and documentary filmmakers descended upon the region, clamoring for exclusive interviews. Caroline and James shielded their daughter from the limelight, wary of exploitation or dramatization. However, they did allow a reputable nature documentary team to interview them under strict guidelines, hoping the true message of interspecies connection wouldn't be lost in sensationalism. During filming, Sarah described the wolf's eyes, how they radiated both sorrow and warmth. Dr. Delgado spoke about the complexities of wolf behavior, emphasizing that while this case was exceptional, it was not impossible. As the cameras rolled, the wilderness around them seemed to whisper reminders of humility. Humans might try to unravel nature's secrets, but some truths are best left to wonder. Spurred by the headlines, local conservation groups seized the opportunity to educate residents and visitors about wolves' role in the ecosystem. Workshops were organized on coexisting with wildlife, teaching people how to minimize conflicts and respect the boundaries of these majestic creatures. Flyers appeared in shops, explaining how to store food securely and why leash laws for pets are essential. Bethany and Robert offered Northern Lights Lodge as a meeting space for these gatherings. They believed wholeheartedly that the community needed to harness the momentum of curiosity to foster mutual respect between humans and wolves. Indeed, it was through these efforts that tensions gradually cooled. Even the more skeptical members of the community, like Travis, began to reconsider the possibility that wolves were more than mindless predators. Spring blossomed into summer, painting the park's meadows with vibrant wildflowers. During this time, sightings of the female wolf became infrequent. Some believed she had integrated back into a different pack. Others feared she might have been wounded or killed. As with many wild creatures, her ultimate fate remained uncertain, a secret carried by the wind, the ridges, and the forest. Sarah found herself both hopeful and saddened by this ambiguity. Part of her longed for a chance to see those eyes again, to confirm that the wolf lived free and unburdened by human intrusion. Yet she also understood that nature's mysteries often remain unsolved, and perhaps that was the wolf's final gift, a lesson in letting go and trusting in forces greater than herself. In the months that followed, Sarah's perspective on life shifted. She wrote essays for school about the importance of empathy toward all living things. She volunteered with local animal shelters and even helped Dr. Delgado's research team by tagging along on safe observation trips, always at a respectful distance from any wolves. These experiences nurtured her compassion and resilience, teaching her that fear and awe can coexist, each fueling a deeper understanding of the world. Caroline and James took pride in their daughter's transformation. The child who once roamed the edges of the forest in naive curiosity had now become a cautious but enthusiastic steward of wildlife. Sarah's relationship with her parents also grew stronger. They supported her newfound passions, attending lectures and talks about wolf behavior and wildlife conservation. Together, they navigated the line between caution and wonder. Healy remained a small but thriving community. Over time, the events surrounding Sarah's rescue shaped local policies, leading to more responsible tourism and greater community involvement in wildlife education. At the annual Winter Carnival, a mural was unveiled depicting a wolf and a young child standing together on an icy road. The mural's plaque read, "Guardianship knows no bounds," a testament to the unexpected bonds of life. People came from neighboring towns to see it, reminding each other that tragedies and miracles can emerge from the same crucible. The painting's vibrant colors, set against the stark black and white silhouettes of the wolf and child, encapsulated the complex emotions the event had stirred: fear, gratitude, heartbreak, hope. Sarah occasionally received letters from strangers all across the country, people who had heard about her story and felt compelled to share their thoughts or blessings. Some wrote that they, too, had been saved by unexpected kindness in life. Others revealed that they had always harbored fear of wolves, but her story encouraged them to see these animals in a new light. One day, Sarah received a package from a woman in Colorado who ran a wolf sanctuary. Inside were photographs of rescued wolves, each with a history of captivity or injury, now free to roam large enclosures under expert care. The woman thanked Sarah for bringing attention to the empathy wolves can show, even if rarely witnessed. Years passed. Sarah grew into a teenager, then a young adult. She visited Denali every summer, sometimes volunteering at the park. Each time she set foot on its trails, she thought of the wolf. Though many new chapters opened in her life: graduation, friends, potential college plans, she never forgot the event that had sparked her awakening to life's fragile wonder. She often recalled the day she returned to the site of her accident and encountered the wolf one last time. The memory was a treasure she carried within her, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of danger, compassion might appear from the most unexpected places. On a crisp autumn day, just before the first snowfall of the year, Sarah ventured to Healy with her parents. She was now 19 and planning to attend a university in Anchorage, aiming to study wildlife biology. They decided to revisit Northern Lights Lodge, reminiscing about how their journey had taken them from terror to gratitude. Sitting by the lodge's fireplace, Sarah reflected on how the child she'd been would hardly recognize the person she had become, a young adult, shaped by an extraordinary brush with the wild. In the lapping glow of the fire, she closed her eyes, listening intently, half imagining a distant howl across the ridges. Whether it was real or just her heart's echo, she smiled, feeling a connection that would endure forever. In truth, no one could say for certain what drove the wolf to rescue Sarah that fateful day. Was it maternal instinct born from loss? A random quirk of canine curiosity? A moment of empathy bridging two species? Perhaps it was all these, or perhaps the reasons defy human labels. The wilderness has always harbored secrets beyond our comprehension, reminding us that we share this earth with beings whose instincts, emotions, and survival stories interlace with our own. For Sarah, the wolf's motivation mattered less than the outcome. She recognized that nature's generosity can be as real as its mercilessness. Therein lay a profound lesson to remain open-hearted, to see beyond fear, and to cherish connections, even fleeting ones, that illuminate the grandeur of life. With her parents' blessing, Sarah continued her studies. She excelled in ecology courses, immersing herself in field research that took her across Alaska's diverse habitats. The memory of being dragged onto that icy road became a cornerstone of her identity, a testament to resilience and the inexplicable compassion that can arise in desperate times. Her story continued to inspire. Each new season, students at local schools learned about the event through documentaries or guest speakers. For many, it served as a reminder that we are all part of an interconnected web humans. Animals, forests, rivers, and mountains woven into a shared tapestry of existence. Occasionally, Dr. Delgado updated Sarah on any wolf sightings. While the female wolf with the distinctive scar had not been definitively identified for years, there were unconfirmed reports of a lone female roaming near the boundaries of Denali. Sometimes, trackers found paw prints leading to a ridge where the animal would stare at the roads below, as if remembering an old lament. But as the wolf aged, these glimpses grew rarer. Sarah liked to imagine that the wolf lived out her days as free as the wind, unencumbered by human intrusion. She carried in her heart the hope that the wolf found some measure of peace after losing her cub, that her extraordinary kindness to Sarah had, in some cosmic balance, offered a measure of solace for her own grief. The ripple effect of kindness often unfolds quietly, without fanfare. In Sarah's case, it influenced her circle of friends, who admired her dedication to wildlife conservation. It affected her parents, who became staunch advocates for responsible tourism and wilderness preservation. It touched the community of Healy, which adopted more thoughtful coexistence strategies with native species. In subtle ways, the event also reached far beyond Alaska. Social media posts, articles, and documentaries circulated, igniting conversations about wildlife empathy in far-flung places. For some, it prompted a re-examination of personal beliefs regarding predators. For others, it simply offered a glimmer of hope in a world that often seemed mired in fear and conflict. As an adult, whenever Sarah retold the story, she downplayed her own ordeal, focusing instead on the wolf's pivotal role. She emphasized that the real miracle was not just that she survived, but that a gap between species was momentarily bridged. That fleeting alliance reaffirmed her conviction that empathy can exist in unexpected forms, reminding us of our shared existence on this planet. Whether one viewed it as a rare behavioral anomaly or a minor miracle, no one could deny the transformative impact it had on Sarah. Her life's work, dedicated to understanding and protecting wildlife, stood as a living testament to how a single act of compassion can reverberate throughout lifetimes. On her final evening before leaving for university, Sarah ventured outside the lodge. The sky was a kaleidoscope of shimmering green and lavender, an aurora borealis dancing across the heavens. She looked up, mesmerized by nature's silent symphony. In that luminous moment, she felt at one with the land, the sky, and every creature that called it home, including the wolf who had saved her. The swirling auroras reminded her of the cycles of life, how tragedies and blessings intermingle, how love and loss shape the tapestry of experience. She whispered a silent thank you, not sure if she was addressing the cosmos, the wolf, or her own heart? Perhaps all three. Before leaving Healy, Sarah and her parents visited the mural one last time. The depiction of the wolf and child glowed under the streetlights, capturing the essence of a moment that transcended fear and reason. A small plaque had been added, bearing a quote from Henry David Thoreau, "In wildness is the preservation of the world." Sarah ran her fingers across the plaque, feeling the cold metal beneath her fingertips. She closed her eyes, letting memories wash over her of a tumble into a ravine, yellow eyes shining in the morning light, the scraping of wolf teeth against her jacket, and the hush that followed as she was dragged onto that icy road. She felt gratitude swell within her chest, too large for words. In the ensuing years, Sarah's advocacy and research contributed to a more nuanced understanding of wolves in Alaska. She published articles, spoke at conferences, and eventually became an integral voice in policy discussions about wildlife corridors and habitat protection. The tale of her rescue, though still shared, became a footnote in the broader tapestry of her life's work. Yet, she never forgot the personal essence of that event. To her, it remained a private conversation between her heart and the wolf's silent spirit. In her quiet moments, she would close her eyes and remember the crunch of snow, the shimmering dawn, and that unmistakable tug on her jacket as her life was pulled from danger. Denali National Park evolved its educational programs, referencing Sarah's story as an example of rare but insightful interspecies interaction. Children who visited the park on field trips often asked, "What happened to the wolf that saved the girl?" Rangers would smile softly and reply that no one knows for sure. She might still roam these forests, or she might have passed on. The important lesson, they stressed, was that compassion and survival can intersect, even in the harshest wilderness. Hiking along those trails, visitors would find themselves pausing by the ravine where Sarah once fell. Some swore they felt an eerie hush there, a reverence in the air. Others left small tokens or scribbled notes in a hidden nook, paying tribute to the story that had captured the world's imagination for a time. A wolf dragging a child onto the road is an image that stirs immediate terror. Yet the astonishing truth behind this moment redefined how a community, a family, and a young girl understood life's fragile boundaries. It demonstrated that the fiercest creatures might harbor tenderness, and that even in a world riddled with conflict, improbable alliances can emerge. For Sarah, this was the greatest gift she could have received, an awakening of empathy that shaped her destiny. In a single act violent in appearance, yet merciful in intent, her path aligned with a greater understanding of nature's heartbeat. And in that alignment, she discovered resilience, connection, and a profound capacity for personal growth. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey, where a shocking encounter on a frozen road blossomed into a remarkable tale of compassion and growth. Sarah's experience transcends simple headlines, inviting us to look beyond our fears and appreciate the powerful bonds that can form between humans and the natural world. Through pain and uncertainty, she discovered resilience and purpose, forever changed by a wolf's unlikely act of mercy. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with anyone who loves inspiring tales, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that showcase the courage and beauty found in unexpected places. Let's continue supporting one another and nurturing the awe and wonder that make life so extraordinary. Together, we can honor these moments and protect the wild magic that surrounds us.